First Chronicles, chapters 13 through 15. David consulted with all his leaders, the commanders of hundreds and of thousands. Then he said to the whole assembly of Israel, "If it seems good to you, and if this is from the Lord our God, let's spread out and send the message to the rest of our relatives in all the district of Israel, including the priests and Levites in their cities with pasture lands, that they should gather together with us. Then let's bring back the ark of our God, for we did not inquire of him in Saul's days." Since the proposal seemed right to all the people, the whole assembly agreed to do it. So David assembled all Israel from the Sheor of Egypt to the entrance of Hamath, to bring the ark of God from Kiriath-jearim. David and all Israel went to Baalah, that is Kiriath-jearim, that belongs to Judah, to take from there the ark of God, which bears the name of the Lord, who is enthroned between the cherubim. At Abinadab's house, they set the ark of God on a new cart. Uzzah and Ahio were guiding the cart. David and all Israel were dancing with all their might before God, with songs and with lyres, harps, tambourines, cymbals, and trumpets. When they came to Shidon's threshing floor, Uzzah reached out to hold the ark because the oxen had stumbled. Then the Lord's anger burned against Uzzah, and he struck him dead because he had reached out to the ark. So he died there in the presence of God. David was angry because of the Lord's outburst against Uzzah, so he named that place Outburst against Uzzah, as it is still named today. David feared God that day and said, "How can I ever bring the ark of God to me?" So David did not bring the ark of God home to the city of David. Instead, he diverted it to the house of Obed-Edom of Gath. The ark of God remained with Obed-Edom's family in his house for 3 months, and the Lord blessed his family and all that he had. King Hiram of Tyre sent envoys to David, along with cedar logs, stonemasons, and carpenters, to build a palace for him. Then David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel, and that his kingdom had been exalted for the sake of his people Israel. David took more wives in Jerusalem, and he became the father of more sons and daughters. These are the names of the children born to him in Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ebar, Elishua, Elpelet, Noga, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Belada, and Eliphalet. When the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over all Israel, they all went in search of David. When David heard of this, he went out to face them. Now the Philistines had come and raided the Rephaim valley. So David inquired of God, "Should I attack the Philistines? Will you hand them over to me?" The Lord replied, "Attack, I will hand them over to you." So the Israelites went up to Baal Perazim, and David defeated the Philistines there. Then David said, "Like a bursting flood, God has used me to burst out against my enemies." Therefore they named that place the Lord bursts out. The Philistines abandoned their idols there, and David ordered that they be burned in the fire. Once again the Philistines raided in the valley. So David again inquired of God, and God answered him, "Do not pursue them directly. Circle around them and attack them opposite the balsam trees. When you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees, then go out to battle, for God will have gone out ahead of you to strike down the army of the Philistines." So David did as God commanded him, and they struck down the Philistines' army from Gibeon to Gezer. Then David's fame spread throughout the lands, and the Lord caused all the nations to be terrified of him. David built houses for himself in the city of David, and he prepared a place for the ark of God and pitched a tent for it. Then David said, "No one but the Levites may carry the ark of God, because the Lord has chosen them to carry the ark of the Lord and to minister before him forever." David assembled all Israel at Jerusalem to bring the ark of the Lord to the place he had prepared for it. Then he gathered together the descendants of Aaron and the Levites. From the Kohathites, Uriel, the leader, and 120 of his relatives. From the Merarites, Asaiah, the leader, and 220 of his relatives. From the Gershomites, Joel, the leader, and 130 of his relatives. From the Elzaphanites, Shemaiah, the leader, and 200 of his relatives. From the Hebronites, Eliel, the leader, and 80 of his relatives. From the Uzzielites, Aminadab, the leader, and 112 of his relatives. David summoned the priests, Zadok and Abiathar, and the Levites, Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eliel, and Aminadab. He said to them, "You are the heads of the Levite families. You and your relatives must consecrate yourselves, so that you may bring the ark of the Lord God of Israel to the place I have prepared for it. For the Lord our God burst out in anger against us because you Levites were not with us the first time, for we didn't inquire of him about the proper procedures." So the priests and the Levites consecrated themselves to bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel. Then the Levites carried the ark of God the way Moses had commanded, according to the word of the Lord, on their shoulders with the poles. Then David told the leaders of the Levites to appoint their relatives as singers, and to have them raise their voices with joy, accompanied by musical instruments, harps, lyres, and cymbals. So the Levites appointed Heman, son of Joel, from his relatives, Asaph, son of Berechiah, and from their relatives, the Merarites, Ethan, son of Cushiah. With them were their relatives, second in rank, Zechariah, Jaaziel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Uni, Eliab, Benaiah, Maaseiah, Mattithiah, Eliphelehu, Mikneiah, and the gatekeepers, Obed-Edom and Jeiel. The singers Heman, Asaph, and Ethan were to sound the bronze cymbals. Zechariah, Aziel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Uni, Eliab, Maaseiah, and Benaiah were to play harps according to Alamoth. And Mattithiah, Eliphelehu, Mikneiah, Obed-Edom, Jeiel, and Azaziah were to lead the music with lyres according to the Sheminith. Shenaniah, the leader of the Levites in music, was to direct the music because he was skillful. Berechiah and Elkanah were to be gatekeepers for the ark. The priests Shebaniah, Joshaphat, Nathaniel, Amasai, Zechariah, Benaiah, and Eleazar were to blow trumpets before the ark of God. Obed-Edom and Jehiel and Jehiah were also to be gatekeepers for the ark. David, the elders of Israel, and the commanders of thousands went with rejoicing to bring the ark of the covenant to the Lord from the house of Obed-Edom, because God helped the Levites who were carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord with God's help. They sacrificed 7 bulls and 7 rams. Now David was dressed in a robe of fine linen, as were all the Levites who were carrying the ark, as well as the singers, and Shenaniah, the music leader of the singers. David also wore a linen ephod. So all Israel brought up the ark of the covenant, so the Lord, with shouts, the sound of the ram's horn, trumpets and cymbals, and the playing of harps and lyres, as the ark of the covenant of the Lord was entering the city of David. Saul's daughter Michal looked down from the window and saw King David leaping and dancing, and she despised him in her heart.